Penn State football fans may finally have gotten the quarterback news that they've been waiting to hear. This offense might actually have a dangerous deep ball threat again. And I listen, I know. A lot of you are going to be saying, hey, JR, it's just practice. Don't get too excited. They were doing 7-on-7. Rocco Becht didn't even complete every deep ball that he threw. And yes, all that is true, okay? So all that's true. But, here's the but. That's also missing what made this first look at Penn State's new offense at fall camp on day 1 and day 2 so refreshing, because the important part wasn't the box score. There was no box score on this. The important part was what the football looked like coming out of Rocco Becht's hands and what he did at Iowa State before he came to Penn State. I got his PFF numbers right here next to me. You can see how good the deep ball is if you're here on YouTube with me, but where he was willing to throw it and what Penn State's offense was actually asking him to attack back at Iowa State and what they're going to be asking him to do at Penn State. So in this episode of the Big Ten Huddle presented by FanDuel, I want to show you why this may be one of the most encouraging developments we've gotten out of Penn State camp so far, because if this carries over into Saturdays, Penn State's offense could look very different in 2026, and that could be a very good thing for Penn State fans. So here's what's actually happening, all right? The media got out to take a look at Penn State fall camp day 1, and they were out there for day 2 as well. But first, Matt Campbell's Penn State during practice included a full 7-on-7 period. And Rocco Becht came out aggressive, not reckless, but aggressive. And he was willing to challenge defenders vertically outside the numbers. And the people watching the practice came away, oh my gosh, mind blown. Like, oh, you can throw these balls? You can do this? And the people watching the practice just came away impressed by something that hadn't exactly been associated with Penn State quarterback play here recently. The ball placement was down the field. Now here's the weirdest part, though. Okay, here's the weirdest part. Most of those deep throws were not actually completed, so that is something that we need to take into account. I get that. And normally, if I told you the starting quarterback threw a bunch of incomplete deep balls at practice, you probably would, you wouldn't call that refreshing news. But this is where we have to separate quarterback play from receiver results, because the reports coming out of camp were essentially saying the throws were there. They were on target. They were there. You can't look at the box score and say, oh, he's only 44%. Well, if you're only 44%, but 5 of those are drops, or 5 of those are the receiver just didn't get under it the right way. That's not the receivers are bad. That's not the quarterback is bad. That's chemistry building, right? The football was getting where it needed to go on the outside, away from the defender, dropped into a place where the Penn State receivers had an opportunity to make a play, and they didn't finish them. They didn't finish them because it's day 1 of fall camp, right? And that's a very different problem than what Penn State has seen in the past. A drop deep ball and a quarterback who can't throw the deep ball are two totally different issues, especially on day 1 of camp. One can change next Tuesday. The other can limit your offense for an entire season. And one says that the coach doesn't trust you if you're not throwing those at practice. And the other one says that, hey, we trust you so much. We want you to keep doing this because we know it's going to click eventually. And that's why this matters. For the last couple of years, Penn State has had really good football teams. Nobody's going to dispute that. Nobody's going to take that away from James Franklin. Really good defenses, really good running games. Katron Allen was a monster last year. NFL talent, enough dudes to beat almost everybody on the schedule. But when you got into those games against the very best teams, everything started to shrink. The field started to shrink. The throwing window started to shrink. The margin for error started to shrink. That's why whenever we saw Drew Aller come out on day 1 or game 1 and he was throwing bombs against West Virginia, then you were excited. You were like, oh my gosh, finally this can happen. But then later on in the year, you'd get to Ohio State and other teams and you're like, where's it at? Where'd it go? Defenses could load resources into areas Penn State wanted to attack because they didn't consistently fear getting punished outside the numbers. And I want to be careful here, okay? This is not me, turning this into a Drew Aller, hate hour or anything like that. That's not what I'm doing. I like Drew Aller a lot, okay? That's not the point of this. The point is stylistic. What does this Penn State offense ask defenses to defend? And from what we saw in the first practice, Matt Campbell's answer appears to be everything. You have to defend everything. That's where Becht becomes really interesting, because there can be this assumption with him that he's not some giant quarterback like Josh Allen with a cannon arm attached to his shoulder. So therefore the arm must, have major limitations and stuff. And the first practice didn't look like that. In fact, the observers specifically came away surprised by how sharp the football looked, how much zip it had on it, and how well he could drive it. Because a strong arm in college is different than a strong arm in the NFL. And remember, that's after dealing with his shoulder issues as well. So physically, that was really encouraging. Okay, this guy still got it, right? He was throwing deep balls at Iowa State. Now he can come here and start throwing deep balls as well. I mean, that's encouraging. But the bigger thing for me is what Penn State is apparently asking him to do with that arm. Because this new offense isn't just throwing random go routes and hoping somebody wins on the outside. They were showing 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. A look that tells the defense, hey, maybe Penn State is about to pound the football, pound the rock, and then Beck, boom, over the top, perfectly willing to attack the isolated receiver on the outside. And that is exactly how you make defenses miserable. Hit them up the gut, and then when they're prepared for up the gut, go over the top and make their cornerback cry because you can't guard your receiver. That's exactly how you make defenses miserable. You want to cram everybody into the box because Penn State football is talented tight ends, and you want to run the football, fine. But now we're throwing it to the outside. We're throwing it over the top. You want to widen everything out and protect yourself from going against the deep ball. Sure, that's great. Go for it. Now those tight ends and those running backs have space to be able to run up the middle, to be able to go, and split off over the, not split off, but, what's the called when you fake the block and then you go up? Can't remember off the top of my head. I was on a roll too. But that offense is exactly what you want from this Penn State team. Not trying to create some 19-step, chess match just to gain 4 yards. Make the defense defend the whole field and punish whatever answer they choose. And here's the part I think Penn State fans should really be excited about. All right, we were already excited. I got you pumped up, right? The deep ball isn't happening by itself, because while Beck was testing the secondary vertically, Penn State was also moving its skill players all over the formation, right? Kobe Howard motioning into the backfield, out of the backfield. Quentin Martin moving from outside into different alignments. Zay Robinson getting work from the slot. Tight ends moving around. Ben Brahmer looking like somebody accidentally put an offensive tackle in motion. Penn State is trying to create confusion before the ball is ever snapped. And not the cute confusion that Andy Kotelnicki did, right? We're not trying to get too cute here, but they are putting guys in different spots so that way you don't just think, oh, this guy's in the game, he's going to line up in this one spot every single time. And then once the defense communicates all that correctly, now you're willing to defend Beck. You're still trying to defend Beck attacking you from over the top. That combination is nasty. Think about what the defense is being asked to process. Who's the running back? Who's the slot receiver? Who's the tight end staying in? Is that tight end staying in line? Is he going to pop out and go to the slot? Is he releasing? Are we playing the run? Who is motioning? Did the coverage change? All of these things are huge aspects that you're going to be having defenses think about when you go against this Penn State offense and what Taylor Mauser has for this team. Then the ball snaps. Beck is throwing the ball 30 yards downfield because the pressure isn't getting to him quick enough because they thought maybe the run was coming. They're going to hesitate. And when you get a defense hesitating, that is your perfect opportunity to be able to hit him with a long run, a deep throw, whatever that might be. So that's much harder than lining up in the same formation over and over and asking your players to simply beat the guy across from them. And we even got a small example of how this stress can pay off. Zay Robinson found himself wide open during the 7-on-7 work. Maybe Robinson created it. Maybe the defense busted something. Maybe the offense alignment created confusion. But honestly, that's almost the point, right? You want defenses asking those questions after the play. Hey, who had him? Hey, how did he get over the top? Blown coverage, broken coverage. And before you start saying anything about the defense, like this happens in fall camp all the time. Defense is still getting used to it. This is not, when you go against your own team, it turns into like, well, the quarterback did well, but man, our defense stinks. That's not what we're talking about here. All right, we are specifically focusing on the offense, so don't turn this into a Penn State's defense stinks or anything like that. But they were asking, who was I supposed to switch to that? Did the motion change the coverage? Because if Penn State can create even a few of those moments every Saturday, those are cheap yards that you can get for free. And you need cheap yards against great teams. Here's another reason this is so refreshing. Rocco Becht already has the mindset for it. He wants to push the football. The reports described him as aggressive and didn't mean aggressive in a bad way where your quarterback sees triple coverage and thinks he's Brett Favre in 1996. I mean, he sees the matchup outside and he's willing to take it. That matters. Drew Aller was not always willing to take it, and when he was, it was oftentimes predetermined before the snap even happened. Rocco Becht comes back, reads what's going on, sees how the defense changes after the pre-snap, and goes from there. Because coaches can install all the vertical concepts they want. If the quarterback won't pull the trigger, it doesn't matter. Becht appears willing to pull that trigger, at least in practice. We'll see what happens when the games come, but when he was at Iowa State, he was willing to do it, so he should be willing to do it here too. Now, somebody also has to catch it. And that brings us to the obvious, not concern, but thing we have to look at here. No, Penn State has not solved everything because receivers almost caught some passes in August. Let's not do that, okay? You eventually have to make the play. Being 6 inches away from an explosive touchdown still gets you 0 points. Penn State needs somebody in this receiver room to prove that when Becht places the football on the outside, down the field, he can trust him to finish the play. That's where guys like Zay Robinson, Kobe Howard become so important to this offense, because if even one or two of these receivers emerge as legitimate vertical threats, now the entire structure has changed. Look, you don't need Jeremiah Smith. You don't need a first-round receiver. You need the defenses to respect the possibility. That's what you need. That's it. Respect change alignments, respect safety depth, respect changes how aggressively linebackers fit into the run, and then Penn State automatically or suddenly, I guess whatever word you want to use, Penn State's offense has a little bit more oxygen. They have a little bit more of an advantage there for Taylor Mauser and his boys to work with. That's what was missing too often in the biggest games last year. And this is where I'll be watching the FanDuel market so we get a closer look on the season. Not because preseason odds tell us whether Becht will hit a deep post in October. They can't. They're not going to. We actually don't even have odds for Becht's over-under on passing yards for the season, which I wish we would get those. But people will say almost anything about a football team. When the win total odds for the championship market start moving, they get a better idea of whether people are actually willing to put something behind those opinions. And if the reports about this offense keep sounding like like this through camp, don't be surprised if the perception of Penn State starts changing in the odds. Not going to change on Twitter and stuff like that, because obviously, people just want to spew whatever random narratives they have, but people are actually thinking when they put their money behind it. So let's see how the FanDuel odds change a little bit here, because quarterback was supposed to be one of the questions. Instead, after the first look, Penn State walked away with something even better. Evidence, not proof. Evidence. There is a difference, not just with the quarterback being better or the quarterback doing something different, but the identity of this offense being willing to do something different, being willing to use the outside threats, the deep threats. I mean, that's encouraging evidence, if you ask me. Becht looked physically capable of attacking the entire field. The ball placement impressed people. The arm looked stronger than some expected. The offense was aggressive. Vertical. The personnel movement, created problems underneath too. And Alex Mansky even had an encouraging return behind him, which makes the quarterback room look healthier than it did entering camp. That's pretty good. I mean, that's a pretty good day if you're asking me. And that's really my takeaway from this is Penn State fans have spent enough time hearing about how the offense can't do this, or you can't throw the deep ball, or Drew Aller's too scared to do this. Again, not taking shots at them, just acknowledging what it was and what the narratives were. They can't create enough explosives. They can't stress defenses. They can't get enough from their receivers. They can't generate enough against elite competition. For once, the first real conversation coming out of practice is about what this offense might actually be capable of doing. That's refreshing. Now, they have to prove it, right? We can get all excited as we can get as excited as we want at the beginning of August here on YouTube, here on the Big Ten Huddle, our podcast. We can get all the excited we want, but they have to prove it. I still need to see those deep balls turn into catches. If I see it week 1, great, but I need to see it later on too. I need to see it the whole season. I need to see it in the biggest games. I still need to see this work, when they play Michigan, when USC comes to town, or another legitimate Big Ten defense is disguising coverage and trying to knock Beck into the ground. Practice excitement does not equal November production. We're going to cover the practice excitement here because it is exciting, but if you're a Penn State fan, you should absolutely prefer this problem over some of the problems you've had in the past. I'd rather spend August, wondering whether the receivers can finish good deep balls than wondering whether those throws are actually going to happen by the quarterback, which we talked about on this channel multiple times going into last season. We said, are they actually going to throw the ball? Everybody else want to talk about receivers, but here at the Big Ten Huddle, you get the actual analysis. You get what's actually going on with the Big Ten teams, because we're not the national media who's just delivering you narratives that we've figured up off the top of our head. Because the answer actually becomes, what do they need to do? And they can do it. If somebody emerges on the outside, and if Campbell's motion-heavy offense keeps forcing defenses to hesitate, then Penn State may have found the exact offensive element that can raise its ceiling in 2026. And for a program starting a brand new era under Campbell, that's about as refreshing as camp news can get. So Penn State fans, tell me in the comments, are you buying the Rocco Becht hype after the first look, or do you need to see the receivers maybe finish these plays before you believe Penn State's deep passing has changed? I'm going to be interested to see how it develops, how it gets better throughout camp. Like the video and subscribe for more Big Ten football analysis. Watch us and see how we develop throughout camp. Stick with us this season as we're going to be covering the entire Big Ten here on the Big Ten Huddle. We go beyond the headlines and we explain what's actually happening on Saturdays and what's actually happening off the field as well, without the purposeless narratives. Thanks so much for listening and watching to the Big Ten Huddle. We appreciate it. Have a good one.